if you don't understand the slides, but I'll try to explain. So now, the individual, let's consider one poor person, and the government wants to increase or to improve his welfare. So originally, this individual is on this budget line BO. This is the original budget line BO. And he's at on this indifference curve. It is indifference curve 1, income. On the y-axis, we have money income. And on the x-axis, we have food. We have food. So basically, let me write that. So on this axis, we have food. Because we want to consider a food subsidy policy and the supplementary income policy. So our X is food. So originally at point A, the individual is consuming 1 unit of food, let's say F1, and he spends BOY1 of his income. He spends BOY1 of his income. Now, with the food subsidy policy, let's start with the food subsidy policy. Now, the government wants to subsidize food for this person. So what the government does, it gives a food coupon to this individual so that whenever he goes to the market to buy food, he presents the coupon and then he can buy food at a lower price. So that means only individuals with a coupon can benefit from that policy. So the government can target people. So it means the market price of food has not changed for the other individuals. It is only for the poor people who have the food coupon. So that means if you are poor and you forget your coupon at home, you will not buy food at that lower price. So you have to carry the food coupon. So to this poor person, the price of food has reduced. And then that means the budget line rotates outwards to B1. The budget line rotates outwards. So now he moves to a higher indifference curve and he settles at point B on budget line B or B1 here. So now he's at point B. At point B, you can remember, this is the income axis. So he spends BOY of his income. Remember, originally the income is OBO from down here. But now what he spends, we count from top here. So initially he was spending BOY1 to buy F1. Now we are saying that he's spending BOY2 to buy F3 units of food. Now, the first thing we need to know, how much would he spend on F3 units of food if he had no food coupon? If he had no food coupon, how much would he spend on these units of food? So what we do, we can trace that to the original budget line at point N here. So from B to N at point N on the original budget line. So when we follow it through, we come up with Y3. That means if we had no food coupon, we would be spending BOY3 of his income. Remember, he's spending BOY2 because he has a coupon. But if he had no coupon, he would spend BOY3 of his income. So that means this difference, Y2, Y3, is paid by the government. So in other words, the seller of food does not lose. It is the government to top up. And it is topping up this difference, Y2, Y3, what the individual would spend and what he actually what the government pays, subsidy policy to the government. So at least now we know the cost of the food subsidy policy. Now we want to compare with the income policy. We want to compare with the income policy. So we go back to our original position A. The individual is here at A. Now, instead of a food coupon, now the government gives him supplementary income. It gives him additional income. So the income will shift the budget line outwards. So we have that red budget line. The budget line will shift because we said when the income increases, the budget line shifts outwards. Now, because we want to compare the two policies, we want to make sure that whichever policy the government adopts, it will put the individual on the same higher level of welfare. In others, on the same higher indifference curve. So that's why when we shift this budget line, we shift it until it is tangent to that indifference curve. So the individual settles at point C. At point C, he can buy 2 units of food, that is F2. Okay, now we want to find out the cost of this supplementary income. And we know from the properties of the budget line, the budget line will shift by the amount of additional income. So that means BOB2 here is the supplementary income. So it is the cost of the supplementary income policy to the government, because the government will give the individual this amount of income, BOB2. Now we want to compare with the food policy. Remember, with the food policy, we say the cost is Y2, Y3. And for the income, it is BOB2. So what we do, we can, when you follow this down here, you can see that parallelogram, BOB2MN, that is a parallelogram. And we know that opposite sides of a parallelogram are equal. So MN is equivalent to BOB2. I hope you see that parallelogram there. Now, so that means MN is the cost of the supplementary income. MN is the cost of the supplementary income, and it is equivalent to BOB2. Then BN, which is equivalent to Y2, Y3, is the cost of the food policy. So obviously from this, you can see that BN is larger than MN, so implying that the food policy is more costly. The food policy is more costly than the income policy. So that means if the government is looking at the cost, then we can advise it to adopt the income policy, because here we can see, at least in the short run, what we see is that the income policy is less costly. So basically, that is one evaluation. But we can also look at other issues, because the government always has several objectives in view. So if the objective was to minimize cost, then the income policy would do. But the government may also have other objectives. So it may not be looking at the cost. Okay, for instance, when you look at the diagram, you can see that when you give this individual a food coupon, he buys F3. And when you give him supplementary income, he buys F2. In other words, with a supplementary income, he buys less food than with a food coupon. Now, what we want is to ask ourselves, why is that so? Why is this so? Why is it that when you give him supplementary income, he buys less food than when he has the food coupon? Now, this is where I enjoy the physical classes, where I can give you 5 minutes to give me that answer. But since you cannot give me the answer now, I can answer myself. So basically, with the food coupon, the individual cannot use it for anything else. He cannot use it for buying shoes or whatever. He can only use it for food. So he has nothing to do. He'll present his coupon and it will give him more food. But then with the supplementary income, if you give the individual additional income, what he does, he diverts some of it to other uses. So that's why the quantity of food under the supplementary income is less. Okay, hope that is clear. Now, assuming in the economy there is excess food, and the government wants also to help the sellers of food or the suppliers of food. So in this way, it will adopt the food subsidy policy, however much it is costly. It is more costly because with the food policy, the government is sure that individuals will buy the food. But with the supplementary income, the government is not sure of how the individual is going to use the coupon, or I mean, how he's going to use the income. So basically, that's why we are saying that it depends on the objective of the government. So it may adopt the food policy, even if it is more costly, just to make sure that people buy the food. Where, for instance, the government also cares about the people so that they know that these husbands, if you give them money, they will not still buy food for the families. But if the government wants to make sure that individuals buy food at home, then they will give a food coupon to individuals. So they have nothing to do with it, but to carry the matoke home to the children instead of eating in the hotel, in the restaurant. Okay, so basically that is that. But then the income policy may be less costly in the short run, but it is more inflationary than the food policy. And of course, when you give everyone more money, like cash, 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 that eventually will lead to inflation. And we all know the costs of inflation. They are greater than the initial cost. So basically, for you as an economist, at least you have advised the government. You put everything on the table, so it is the government to decide. You know, when I say it is less costly now, in the future it will be inflationary, then that means the government has to consider which generation it wants to help. Because if you give the income policy today, then it means that the next generation is going to suffer. Basically, that is the how we can use the indifference curve analysis to evaluate alternative policies. We can also use okay, maybe before I go to overtime payment, any question, you can put up your hand, you can raise your hand. Before I go on to this one, any question on what we have covered? Okay, the problem, so many people came in very late. So if I say someone saying you repeat, I'll know that they came in late. So if you came in late and you didn't get the first part, you just keep quiet. And we go with those who were there from the beginning of the lecture. Okay. Yes, Mary Musoki.
You're saying that read this bullet, you know, you see the quantity of food under the income policy is smaller than under the food subsidy. I wanted to just show the quantity of food, how it's smaller under the income policy.
Okay. So, you know, when you look at the axis normally starts from 0 going upwards. So we assume that here it is 0, then it increases as you move to the right of the axis. Do you get that? And also likewise, the y-axis starts from 0 and it increases as we move upwards the axis. So basically, that's why I say F3 is greater than F2, because F2 is to the left of the axis than F3. So whatever is on the right is larger, okay? So basically, that's why I say with a food coupon, he buys more food than with supplementary income, because with supplementary income, it settles at point C. That is where this budget line, the red one, is tangent to that indifference curve. So basically, I hope that answers your question if I understood you well. Colin. Colin, are you saying anything? Colin, I cannot hear you. Okay, I think there's a problem with her network. Okay, let's continue. We shall ask later. Overtime payments. We can also use the indifference curve analysis to illustrate overtime payment. So basically, we start by explaining some two curves. One is what we call income leisure curve. Now we want to change the indifference curve name to income leisure curve. So this time the indifference curve is called the income leisure curve, because since we are talking of overtime payments, so we are looking at an individual worker. So with the worker, we are interested in the income and the leisure time or the working time. Okay, so basically, when we look at the income leisure curve, this shows various combinations of income and leisure, which result in the same level of satisfaction to the worker, to the individual worker. So at M1, of course, you can see the indifference curve does not touch either axis, because there is a maximum income one can earn and there is a minimum income one can earn, because we assume due to physical limitations, no one can work 24 hours. So there must be a maximum income. And also, everyone wants an income, a small income, however lazy you are. At least you need something to survive on. So there is a minimum income, which is M2 here. So you can see with the maximum income, M1 here, the leisure time is minimal, it is small. It means that this individual will rest for few hours. That's why the leisure time is L1. Now, when he moves downwards along that indifference curve, that means he's substituting leisure for income. So that means the leisure time is increasing when he moves downwards along the indifference curve. The leisure time is increasing. And this is the maximum leisure time. Like we said, that everyone needs to earn a certain income to survive. So there is a minimum income and a maximum leisure time. So basically, that is L2 is the maximum leisure time and M2 is the minimum income. So that is the income leisure curve, which is our indifference curve. Now here we have the wage curve, which is equivalent to the budget line. Now the wage curve, the slope of this wage curve shows the wage per hour, or it can be called the income leisure constraint. Like the other side, we have the budget constraint. So this is the income leisure constraint. So it shows how much time of leisure an individual must give up if he wants to earn a certain level of income. So if we take OL here to be equivalent to 24 hours, if the individual works for all the 24 hours, he will earn an income equal to OM here. In other words, everything will be exhausted. He will earn his income here. That is if he works only 24 hours or L. But we have said that people cannot work 24 hours. They need to rest. So the individual has to divide his time between work and leisure. So that means in this case, if he wants to earn an income M1, he will spend L1 hours for leisure and the remaining L1L for work. So basically, this is for leisure and that one is for work because this is the leisure axis. So from 0 onwards, that is leisure. And after that, that is work. So OL1 is for leisure and L1L is for work. So that means if he works L1L hours, he will earn an income OM1. So basically, those are the two curves. Now, the equilibrium of the worker is where this income leisure curve is tangent to the wage curve. That is the equilibrium. And when we say equilibrium, that means the individual is satisfied at that point. Let's assume it is tangent at that point. So he is satisfied by working L1L, assuming the curve, the income leisure curve is tangent at that point. Now we want to illustrate overtime payment. So we are saying that at the equilibrium, the individual is satisfied. Now we want to show what the employer can do in order to make this individual reduce his leisure time in a situation where he's already satisfied. So originally, he's at E0. He's at E0. So basically, at that point, he's satisfied on indifference curve 1. So he's in equilibrium by working L1L hours. Now, if the employer wants more hours of work, he must offer a higher wage. So, like I said, the slope of the wage curve shows the wage per hour. So that means the steeper the wage curve, the higher the wage. So we want to show that this employer is giving him a higher wage. So what we do, we draw another wage curve, which is steeper, of course, to the left of E, because otherwise to the right, it would lose meaning. To the left of E, of course, because you want to show that he's reducing the leisure time. So obviously, because of the higher wage, the individual moves to a higher indifference curve. And he settles at point E1, where that indifference curve is tangent to the wage curve. So you can see the leisure time is reducing and the income is increasing. Okay. Mary Musoki.
I wanted you I have not understood you about why when you're talking about the wage curve.
Okay.
That wage curve, when you're talking about L1, L.
Okay. Okay, so this is our wage curve here. The wage curve, this one, like we would think of a budget line. So the wage curve shows how much time of leisure the individual must give up if he wants to earn a certain level of income. Like for instance, if this is the hours on the leisure hours. So this is the leisure curve. So I said that OL here, or up to L here, is the equivalent to 24 hours. So if the individual works 24 hours, he will earn OM income, this one. Where my cursor is, you have to look at my cursor. So basically, we are saying the individual cannot work 24 hours, so he has to divide his time between leisure and work. Now, if he works for L1L, this part here, in other words, if he spends all L1 hours in leisure, not working, then he will earn his income or M1. The income will be here at M1. Okay, so basically, that is the wage curve. It shows the slope of that curve shows the wage per hour. So the wage per hour is given by that slope of the wage curve. That's what I'm saying, that the steeper the slope or the steeper the wage curve, the higher the wage per hour. So basically, this is the hours of work, L1L, and let me see if I can write what, oh, when I do that, my graph now gets distorted. But anyway, this is the hours of work, and 0L1 is the hours of leisure. So basically, we are saying that equilibrium is the point of tangents of the wage curve and the indifference curve. So initially, the individual is in equilibrium at EO, where working L1, L hours, and then earning income or M1. Colin, hope this time we can hear you. Colin, there's something wrong with your, okay, what you are going to do, maybe you write in the chat. I can spare some time and